The room glowed with soft lights and expensive smiles. Glasses clinked under the chandelier, and laughter filled the air, the kind that hides cruelty behind celebration. Family and friends leaned closer, expecting entertainment, not realizing everything was about to fall apart. She lifted her glass, calm and confident. "I think it's time everyone knew," she said. "I didn't just make a mistake. I went back to my ex." The room froze, then reacted. Gasps turned into whispers. Some smiled. No one looked at him. He stayed seated, silent, his face unreadable. She waited for anger, for begging, for shame. It never came. He stood, straightened his jacket, met her eyes once, and walked away. No words, no fight, just silence. They thought it was weakness. They didn't know that was the moment he decided everything would change. Viewers, what would you do if betrayal was announced in front of everyone you trusted? The house had a calm that felt earned, the kind that comes after years of shared routines and unspoken understanding. Morning light slipped gently through the cream-colored curtains, settling across the wooden floor, and the framed wedding photo on the wall. In the picture they were both smiling, leaning into each other, still believing that love was something that stayed whole if you held it carefully enough. He often glanced at that photo as he tied his tie each morning. Not because he doubted her, but because it reminded him why he worked so hard, why the long hours and quiet sacrifices mattered. She moved through the kitchen with practiced ease, her hair loosely tied back, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The smell of toast and brewed coffee filled the room, familiar and comforting. When she handed him his cup, their fingers brushed, and she smiled in the same way she always had, warm and effortless. There was nothing in that moment that hinted at betrayal, nothing sharp or suspicious, nothing that suggested their life was quietly cracking beneath the surface. He trusted her without effort. Trust was not something he questioned or guarded. It had grown naturally between them over the years, built from shared struggles, private jokes, and nights spent talking about dreams they believed they would reach together. Even when work kept him out late or exhausted him to silence, he never doubted where she was or who she was with. She was his wife, his partner, and the center of the life he had carefully built. That afternoon, his day ended earlier than expected. A meeting had been canceled, and the rare gift of free time felt almost unfamiliar. He drove home slowly, enjoying the quiet streets, already imagining her surprise when he walked in before sunset. There was a small satisfaction in the thought, a gentle excitement that came from breaking routine for something good. When he entered the house, it was unusually quiet. No music played, no footsteps moved above him, no voice called out his name. He set his keys down and walked further inside, assuming she might be in the bedroom or taking a shower. His phone buzzed softly in his hand, a vibration he would have ignored any other day, but something about the timing made him glance down. The message preview appeared briefly on his screen before fading, but the words stayed with him long enough to settle uneasily in his chest. "I miss you. When can we see each other again?" The name attached to the message was unfamiliar, yet disturbingly casual, as if it belonged there. His heart did not race at first. Instead, it slowed, heavy and deliberate, as his mind searched for explanations that would preserve the world he believed in. Perhaps it was a mistake. Perhaps she had picked up his phone by accident earlier. Perhaps it was nothing at all. He unlocked the screen. More messages waited beneath the first, layered like quiet confessions that had been building over time. Each one revealed pieces of a story he was never meant to read. Conversations filled with memories, laughter, and a closeness that belonged only to the past. She had once described as painful and finished. The name at the top of the screen was suddenly clear now. It was her ex. The room felt smaller, as though the walls had inched closer while he stood frozen between disbelief and understanding. He did not feel anger yet. What he felt was something colder and deeper, a slow realization that the trust he carried so easily had been misplaced. Each message pulled him further, from denial and closer, to a truth he had never imagined he would face inside his own home. Footsteps sounded from the hallway, light and unhurried. She appeared, smiling at the sight of him, surprise brightening her eyes. "You're home early," she said, her voice relaxed, natural, untroubled. He looked at her then, really looked, searching her face for any sign of guilt or hesitation. There was none. She crossed the room, leaning in to kiss his cheek, and in that moment, something inside him shifted permanently. The familiarity of her touch no longer brought comfort. It brought clarity. He slipped his phone into his pocket without a word, returning her smile with one of his own, carefully shaped and convincing. If she noticed anything different, she did not show it. She turned back toward the kitchen, talking about her day, unaware that the man standing beside her was already someone new. He listened, nodded, and responded at the right moments, while his mind quietly reorganized itself around a single, undeniable truth. She had gone back to the past, and she believed the present would remain unchanged. She was wrong. The days that followed moved forward as if nothing had changed, yet everything had. He woke each morning beside her, feeling the familiar weight of routine press down on him, but now every detail carried a new meaning. The way she checked her phone when she thought he was not looking, the way her laughter paused for a fraction of a second when a certain name appeared on the screen, the way she dressed with slightly more care before leaving the house. None of these things had mattered before. Now they stood out sharply, like shadows that refused to stay hidden in the light. He did not confront her. The words never left his mouth, not because they were difficult to say, but because he understood something important. Confrontation would give her time, space, and excuses. It would give her a chance to reshape the truth into something smaller, something easier to forgive. He did not want fragments of honesty. He wanted the full shape of it, exposed and undeniable. So he chose silence, and he wore it carefully. At breakfast, he asked about her plans for the day, his tone warm and steady. At night, he listened as she spoke about work and errands, nodding as though her voice still anchored him to something safe. She responded to his calm with ease, her guard lowering a little more each day, comforted by the belief that her secret remained untouched. In her mind, the past had returned quietly, slipping back into her life without consequence. He watched her from a distance that grew wider with every passing hour. Late one evening, she stepped outside to take a call, her voice hushed but familiar through the thin walls. He remained in the living room, the television playing softly, his eyes fixed on nothing. He did not need to hear the words clearly to understand their weight. He already knew who was on the other end, already understood the rhythm of her tone, the lightness she no longer used with him. When she returned, she apologized casually, claiming it was a friend who needed advice. He smiled and told her it was fine, and in that moment she relaxed completely, unaware that every lie was being stored carefully in his memory. He was not collecting them out of pain alone. He was collecting them for a purpose. At work, his focus sharpened. He handled meetings with a precision that surprised even his colleagues, his thoughts controlled and deliberate. While others discussed deadlines and projections, he planned something far more personal. He knew that revenge born from chaos would only leave destruction behind. What he wanted required patience, timing, and absolute control. In quiet moments, he thought about the man from her past, the one who had stepped back into her life as if nothing had changed. He wondered what promises were being made, what illusions were being sold. He did not feel threatened by him. Instead, he felt a calm certainty that the story would not end the way either of them expected. At home, she began to change in subtle ways. She stayed out later, citing traffic or spontaneous plans with friends. She grew distant in small but unmistakable moments. Her attention divided even when she sat beside him. Yet she still believed she was managing it well, balancing two worlds without letting them collide. He made sure she felt safe. One evening over dinner, he mentioned an upcoming family gathering, a celebration that would bring relatives and close friends together. Her eyes lit up at the idea, and she spoke eagerly about what she would wear. How nice it would be to see everyone again. He agreed, encouraging her enthusiasm, planting the seed carefully and watching it take root. That night, as she slept, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what he was about to do settle fully into his chest. This was not a decision made in anger. It was a decision shaped by betrayal and refined by thought. He understood the consequences, the permanent shift that would follow, and he accepted it without hesitation. In the days leading up to the gathering, he remained attentive, affectionate even, playing the role she expected with such consistency that she never questioned it. Each smile he gave her was measured, each touch deliberate, not driven by love but by strategy. He was no longer reacting to what she had done. He was guiding the story toward its moment of truth. She, meanwhile, believed she was in control. She believed the past could be revisited without disturbing the present, that loyalty could be divided without cost. She had no idea that the man she slept beside each night had already stepped beyond forgiveness, And when the time came, when the room would be full and the truth would have nowhere left to hide, he would remove the mask and let reality speak for itself. The gathering filled the house with noise long before the first guest stepped inside. Laughter drifted through open windows, mixed with the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation. Decorations had been carefully arranged, the kind meant to signal warmth and celebration. Yet beneath the surface, the atmosphere carried a quiet tension only one man truly understood. He moved through the room with calm purpose, greeting relatives, shaking hands, and offering polite smiles that revealed nothing of the storm waiting just beneath his composure. She looked radiant that evening, dressed with extra care, her confidence evident in the way she carried herself. She believed the night was meant to celebrate togetherness, unaware that it would become something far more defining. As she laughed with friends and accepted compliments, she felt secure in the life she thought she was managing so skillfully. Her husband watched her from across the room, not with longing but with focus, observing every gesture as if memorizing it for the last time. The guests settled in comfortably, conversations flowing easily, the room alive with familiar faces and shared histories. At the center of it all, he stood quietly, waiting for the moment he had carefully chosen. This was not an impulsive act. It was a stage he had built patiently, one that required witnesses and clarity, a place where denial could not survive. When he finally raised his glass, the room gradually fell silent. The sound of his voice cut through the air, steady and composed, drawing everyone's attention. He began with words of appreciation, thanking family and friends for being present, for supporting their marriage, for believing in the bond they had shared. His tone was sincere, his expression calm, and she smiled beside him, unaware that the ground beneath her was about to shift. Then his words changed. He spoke of trust, of loyalty, and of how easily both could be mistaken for permanence. He spoke slowly, allowing each sentence to settle into the room, his voice carrying a weight that made people lean in rather than look away. Confusion flickered across a few faces, curiosity replacing comfort as the atmosphere tightened. She turned to look at him, her smile faltering slightly, sensing that something was wrong but still unable to grasp its shape. He met her gaze briefly, his eyes unreadable, then continued. Without raising his voice, without anger or accusation, he revealed the truth. He spoke of messages sent in secrecy, of late-night calls taken outside, of a past relationship revived under the belief that it would remain hidden. The room grew still, the silence stretching as each word found its place. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd, disbelief and shock spreading like a wave. Her face drained of color. She tried to speak, to interrupt, but no sound came. Her eyes darted across the room, searching for understanding, for an escape, for someone who might stand up and deny what was unfolding. No one did. The truth stood on its own, undeniable and exposed. He did not shout. He did not insult her. He simply let the reality exist in the open, where it could no longer be reshaped or minimized. He revealed the name of the man from her past, the one she had welcomed back into her life, believing the consequences would never reach this far. At the sound of that name, a sharp intake of breath moved through the room. She took a step back, her confidence collapsing into panic. Her family stared at her in stunned silence. Friends avoided her eyes, uncomfortable and unsure. The celebration had vanished completely, replaced by a heavy awareness that something irreversible had just occurred. He watched it all unfold without flinching, knowing this was only part of what he had planned. She finally found her voice, attempting to explain, to soften the truth with excuses and half-formed justifications. He listened without interruption, his expression calm, his posture relaxed. When she finished, he responded simply, explaining that her words no longer held power because the choices had already been made. The room felt suffocating now, every breath thick with tension. Guests shifted uneasily, unsure whether to leave or stay, trapped between discomfort and curiosity. He knew they would remember this night for years, and that was intentional. This was not a private betrayal. It had been a calculated deception, and he had chosen to end it in full view. As the weight of the situation settled in, she realized something too late. This was not a moment designed for forgiveness. It was a moment designed for consequence. The man she had underestimated, the one she believed would never expose her, had taken control of the narrative completely. And he was not finished yet. The house did not return to life after the guests left. It settled into something colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Half-empty glasses remained where laughter had once been, and decorations hung uselessly, glowing under lights that no longer felt warm. She stood alone near the doorway, her body stiff, her thoughts racing faster than her heart could keep up with. He did not look at her. He moved calmly through the room, straightening a chair, picking up a glass, restoring order with slow, deliberate movements. There was no rage in him, no shaking hands, no hurried steps. That absence unsettled her more than shouting ever could. She had expected anger. She had expected accusations. What she saw instead was distance, and it frightened her. She followed him into the kitchen, her voice breaking the silence in fragments. She tried to explain, her words tumbling over each other, filled with regret and urgency. She spoke of confusion, of old feelings that resurfaced unexpectedly, of moments that were never meant to turn into choices. Tears streamed freely now, her composure completely gone. He listened without interrupting. When she finally stopped, exhausted and hopeful all at once, he turned toward her. His face was calm, almost gentle, but his eyes no longer searched for her. They were settled somewhere far beyond this moment. He told her quietly that betrayal was not a mistake made in a single second, but a series of decisions made when honesty would have ended everything sooner. He told her that trust did not shatter loudly, but once it broke, it could never be reshaped into what it was before. His voice did not rise, yet every word carried weight, landing with finality. She reached for him instinctively, but he stepped back. That small movement ended whatever hope she still held. The following days unfolded with ruthless efficiency. Papers appeared on the table, already prepared, already precise. Names were separated. Assets were divided. The future she assumed was guaranteed dissolved line by line, signature by signature. Each document felt like a door closing, and she realized with growing panic that he had been preparing long before she ever noticed. She tried everything. She called. She texted. She waited outside his office. She reached out through family and mutual friends. But the man who once answered her at any hour had vanished behind a silence that felt intentional and absolute. His absence was not emotional. It was strategic. He had removed himself completely, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The man from her past did not remain by her side either. When secrecy turned into exposure, when comfort turned into responsibility, he faded quickly, offering excuses and distance instead of support. She watched him leave without protest, understanding too late that what felt exciting in the shadows could not survive in the light. Isolation followed. Whispers replaced conversations. Invitations stopped coming. People looked at her differently now, with a mixture of pity and judgment that no explanation could erase. The life she had balanced so confidently collapsed under its own weight, leaving her to stand in the ruins of choices she once believed were harmless. He, meanwhile, rebuilt quietly. He relocated, reshaped his routine, and poured his energy into work and self-discipline. The pain did not disappear, but it no longer controlled him. Each morning he woke with clarity rather than confusion. Each night he slept knowing he had chosen self-respect over denial. He did not seek revenge through destruction. He let reality do the work. From a distance, she watched him move forward, stronger and untouched by the chaos she now lived inside. That realization hurt more deeply than any confrontation ever could. She had believed he was predictable, forgiving, incapable of decisive action. She had been wrong. His revenge was not loud. It was not cruel. It was complete. He took away the future she assumed was secure, not through anger but through certainty. He removed himself from her life so fully that there was nothing left to fight against, nothing left to negotiate. The man she betrayed became unreachable, and that absence echoed louder than any punishment. In the end, there was no final argument, no dramatic reunion, no second chance offered at the edge of regret. There was only consequence standing where love once lived, and that was the revenge that shocked everyone beyond belief.